It's an honour to have you here. We've known each other for a while, so it means a lot to have you chat to us and speak to our listeners as well. So I'm really, really happy that you're here. So
happy to be here.
Thank you. So look, give us a little intro to yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so my name's Amanda Charles, and I am a Chartered Counselling Psychologist. I'm an author. I am an international speaker and the founder and CEO of a tech company called Therapy.
Oh my God, that's a lot.
It is.
And you still found time to come and see me.
Of course I did, of course.
Oh, thank you. God, wow. That's super impressive. But today we're mainly talking about psychology. Let's go back to the beginning. What is psychology?
Yeah, so a psychologist really is somebody that's focused in on people's behaviour, their thoughts, their feelings, and why they are that particular way. And it can be in so many different areas of our lives. So there's lots of study and research that goes into this, but it branches out into different areas. So a psychologist that works like I do, so I'm a Chartered Counselling Psychologist, registered practitioner. So that means I work with clients, and I'm looking at the way in which I can help their behaviour, their thoughts and their feelings to enhance the way that they're living their lives, basically. But you can also be a clinical psychologist, same training, different route.
What's clinical psychologist?
Often people do get a bit confused between the two. So we can go for the same jobs, we do the same job. However, a clinical psychologist, the route that they will go down is through the NHS. So if you are looking to want to work with people, you could do either job. A counselling psychologist has to pay and go through their whole training themselves.
Okay.
And the focus there is obviously still mental health and behavioural enhancement, but you are doing the doctoral training and you're having to find yourself a placement. You have to do 450 hours, I think it is, of therapy, with people in order to qualify, and at least 60 hours or 80 hours personal therapy as well to qualify. Clinical psychologists, the route is already there, it's already paid for, you get placements within the NHS, and everything's kind of
okay. Why to me then that sounds like on one hand do it all yourself, and on the other hand it's all mapped out for you. So why would you do it all yourself? What's the benefit of going down that road then?
There are so many limited places to start with on either course. For me, I chose to go more in the counselling psychology route because you have much more in-depth training on the different therapeutic modalities. So you're much more equipped to work with clients. Often, not always, but often in clinical psychology, you'll just work in a kind of a cognitive behavioural framework. So very much, it's all, again, a bit like the whole routes laid out, the way in which you work with clients is also laid out.
Okay.
Whereas in counselling psychology, you're learning all the different areas. So cognitive behavioural therapy, you're looking at psychodynamic therapy, and you're looking at humanistic. So
are there tons of different psychologists? Like what are the main different types? I know you said clinical and chartered, but let's go criminal. Do you know much about criminal psychology?
So there's a forensic psychologist. Okay. So let me just go back a little bit, because it's really important to know this, and important for the people watching to know. So in the UK, in order to call yourself a psychologist, anyone can do it.
Okay.
You could turn around and go, I'm Michael, I'm, an HR psychologist or whatever, right? Because it's not legally protected.
Right.
However, the legally protected titles are legally protected. So it's illegal for you to call yourself a counselling psychologist. It's illegal for you to call yourself a clinical psychologist, a forensic psychologist, an occupational psychologist. So we've got protected titles, but we've also got some rogue people running around the world pretending they're psychologists when they're not. So you need more than a degree in psychology to actually be a psychologist. So it's not a criminal psychologist, it's a forensic psychologist.
Okay.
So the difference there, the actual The actual job itself is fairly similar because obviously psychology is all about, behavior, as I said before, and your thoughts and your feelings. But it's the environment in which you're working. So you'll be working in the criminal justice system. You might be working in jails. You might be working with the police. So there are lots of programs, lots of people. It's been quite common, hasn't it, nowadays, for youngsters to want to be forensic psychologists.
So what I'm getting is psychology is understanding the brain or thoughts and feelings for different objectives, maybe, depending on what type of psychologist you are. Could be something to do with criminal psychology, forensic.
So occupational
psychology
as well. Absolutely. So I started in occupational psychology when I first left university. I did my degree in psychology.
Okay.
And I went to work for Reuters in London in their corporate HR department. Yeah. So for me, I wasn't an occupational psychologist. Remember, if you just got a degree in psychology, you're not.
Yeah.
But I was going to take that route. I was going to do the master's route, etc. Okay. So in order to become a psychologist, you often need to have experience in the area in which you want to work. So you might be an assistant psychologist if you want to go in clinical, or you might go into HR if you're wanting to go into occupational, that kind of thing. So for me, I was very much working in leadership development, change management, graduate recruitment, actually. What
was your route in? Is it, because I know with doctors, you've got to study for 7 years. Is it like that?
Yeah, it is. But it depends on what route you're wanting to go down. So in order to, the most important factor is if you have an idea that you might want to become a psychologist, there's certain things you need to do in terms of your the subjects that you're choosing so that you don't close a door or make it harder for yourself. So there's something called the British Psychological Society. And in order to become an actual chartered psychologist, you have to meet their registration criteria for chartership. Otherwise, you're not ever going to do that. So not all courses in psychology you get the graduate basis for registration. So you have to always be sure that any course that you're doing is recognised by the British Psychological Society. Now, in order to get on those courses, there are areas that can be helpful. So maths.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
That surprises me, maths.
Yeah, see, people think it's an airy-fairy subject, but it's a science. It is a science, and you have to do quantitative and qualitative research in order to become a psychologist. Now, if you're not great at maths, so long as you pass your maths, you will be okay, because, as I also said, you've got qualitative and quantitative. Quantitative is when you do your research and you're looking at statistical analysis. Qualitative is when you do an analysis, but you're doing it through words. You're doing it's a different way in which you can do it. So you're not having to be quite so, astute in terms of mathematics. But nowadays, there's lots of computer programs that can do it all for you.
Yeah. Okay. What is it like being a psychologist day to day? Because we've talked a lot about study and it sounds like a lot of effort, but why would you do it? And what do you do in a day? Is it just, excuse my ignorance, but just chatting to people on a sofa asking about their childhood? I know that's an ignorant way of looking at it, but that's what people think,
That is what people think, yeah.
So what is
and everyone thinks they're a psychologist, right? Yeah. They think they can all do it. So let me just tell you one other thing as well, because this is something that also comes up. People don't often know the difference between a counsellor, a psychologist, a psychotherapist, a psychiatrist. So shall I just...
Yes, please. That's a really good point. Thank you.
Okay. So a psychiatrist we'll start with. So a psychiatrist is trained as your GP would be trained. They're trained in the medical model. So then they specialise in psychology. So then they look at pharmaceuticals, they look at medication that can be helped. That's kind of where they're looking from, because obviously they're doctors, so they're looking at the biology of the body and the biochemistry. So they will treat your depression with a tablet. That's how they believe it would help you.
Okay.
Now, a psychologist is trained as a psychologist. So they will know all about your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviour, and the impact that has on your depression. We'll just use that as an example.
I haven't got depression, but not yet anyway.
So then they will look at different therapeutic modalities in order to help you help yourself effectively. And they might go back into your childhood. can be really important to do that, to look at patterns that have been built up over the years, things that you're blind to, different thoughts that are influencing you and the way you feel, and the behaviours that you are or you aren't doing that are going to influence that. So we're looking at you as a person and how we can change your depression, your life as a result of that.
Got it.
A psychotherapist is somebody that's trained in psychotherapy. So let me go to a counsellor. So a counsellor and a psychotherapist, they're both trained to support you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you came to me and I'm a counsellor, I would be with you in the moment. I would be saying, oh yes, you've been feeling down today. I might be reflecting back. I would support you. I'd let you feel held and heard. But I'm not going to really know much more than that. I'm not going to be able to bring up the fact that this is a repeated pattern from your childhood that might have been influenced by X, Y, Z. If you go to a psychotherapist, there's different forms of psychotherapy, and they, depending on the approach they use, will be bringing in other factors to look at and try to resolve the situation that you're in. So a counsellor is just here in the moment with you. Psychotherapist, here in the moment, but might well bring in other areas in order to enhance your life and work through. Psychologist, similar, but you obviously with a lot more training and a lot more awareness of the psychological disorders. And then a psychiatrist, the same, but also will use the medication.
What if there's someone out there who's heard what you've got to say and is interested in psychology, but doesn't know where, out of those other options you've given me, where they'd end up, whether it's a therapist, psychotherapist, psychologist, all the other different variations? Do you have to know when you start off what you're going to do?
Obviously, you can always go back and retrain for anything. But if you want a straightforward route, if you want to be a psychiatrist, then definitely you've got to train as a doctor. So you need to have your biology, your physics, your chemistry, all that kind of thing. If you want to be a psychologist, ideally, having biology is really helpful because you've got psychobiology, the influence, within the brain. And like I said, maths. Okay. English is very good as well for that. If you're going to be a psychotherapist or a counsellor, then often people get to that later on in their life. It's not usually something people leave school and want to be. Yeah,
I've heard of a few friends actually who've gone into corporate life and then become a counsellor. So that's the sort of less, I'm going to say less qualified, but you know what I mean. You don't have to have a degree.
No, you don't. You can become a counsellor in 1 to 2 years. You could do it. You could do it in
college.
College. In night school.
Yeah, night school, college. Yeah. So then thinking back to psychology, day in the life of, maybe pick a moment in your career which is easiest to maybe describe. What was that psychology job, and what was a typical day in the life? Because young people who are still in education, they probably can't even picture what it's like being at work. So is it office based? Do you have colleagues? Is there banter? Are you by yourself? What's the environment? Let's just say that.
Yeah, it very much depends on which route you take. So I could have got my chartership and gone to work in the NHS, then I would be hospital based potentially, or I could do it in a private hospital. What I actually chose to do was to have my own practice. So right from the beginning, actually even before I became chartered, I did hypnotherapy and NLP and coaching, etc. So I've always had my own practice. But looking back, in the early days, I used to do a lot of consulting in secondary schools, actually. So I might travel to different secondary schools and work with some of the students there and talk to some of the teachers there. So, that day might look like me, going to Slough, to a school in Slough, working with the children there, coming back maybe in the afternoon, in the evening, seeing a few private clients in my clinic. I've done stuff for Wandsworth Council. There's lots of different environments. So for me, I've had the freedom to choose where I work.
Okay.
Some people, they might just take a job at the NHS and that's all they do and see that particular type of patient.
But it sounds like my job is in a proper office that you can imagine an office to be like, lots of people sitting at desks working on laptops. It sounds like it's not that. Being a psychologist is not that environment.
It's not. However, some of it is that.
Can be, yeah.
Yeah, so you've got, if you're working for yourself, you've got to do your own accounting, you've got to do your advertising, whatever. I mean, now when I do work with clients, now I work internationally, so I'm on Zoom a lot, at home rather than being in my office.
Okay.
So I do a bit of both. So my day now is different to how it used to be.
Okay. So what type of person or attributes does psychology suit? What could you maybe tell them to help them?
Yeah, I think I would never restrict anybody's, outlook, but I think there are people that are more suited to that. If you're somebody that really likes to do things that are quite physical and that's kind of maybe been really sporty at school, or you like really to get in there, then that might not suit somebody of that disposition, because it might feel a bit frustrating.
Okay.
Because actually you need to be at peace within yourself to some degree, because you're needing to hold another person in whatever way in which you're working. So it's kind of having that awareness of self and that confidence within yourself, which grows, So I'm not saying if you don't have self-confidence, don't do it, but that ability to self-reflect, so that you need to know yourself so that you can know what's yours and what's the person that you're working with. That's really key. That grows as you develop in the training. So I think depending on the different areas, different people are suited to that as well.
So what's the best things about being a psychologist?
The most amazing thing is to really see the transformation in someone's life. I have had numerous people that they literally wouldn't be here now.
Yeah.
And one in particular, and it made me, he told me afterwards that had I not picked up the phone that day, he had bought the rope. He had,
Wow.
There's a lot of responsibility there, but when you see somebody grow and, their life turn around, there's nothing like it. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I was going to ask, with every job, I think there's a trade-off. And I think it's important for young people to know that jobs have trade-offs. Like, for example, if you want to work with puppies all day long, the trade-off is probably going to be, it's not going to pay top dollar because it's quite fun.
Yeah.
So you've just told me the good parts about being a psychologist. What's the trade-off, would you say?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a code of conduct, and your clients aren't meant to know anything about you. You're a blank slate from which they project their world onto. So it can be pretty tricky when you work in a particular area. I remember going into the gym, and one of my clients was there, and I just had to turn around and walk out. I remember going to, the theatre, and there was an ex-client there, and so you're kind of a little bit trying not to impinge on their world. Yeah. So there is this kind of a responsibility there to
remove yourself.
Yeah. And now obviously things have changed with social media. There's an expectation that you share your world now. It's kind of reversed. And obviously I've written a book and I've had to share a lot about myself. So that's really hard to come to, when I've been a psychologist for 26 years, I've been doing this for a long time, going back to when I was doing hypnotherapy, etc. And that's a big thing to shift. That's a big shift. Because people actually want to know you're human. They want to know that you've been through things, that they can relate to them, as well as be that stable, supportive figure to help them out of the darkness. I've
always wondered, do psychologists sort of need other psychologists to sort of help them cope with the burden they're given? Does that happen?
You're kind of required to have supervision.
Okay.
So you meet up with peers, or you pay for particular supervision. Let's just say you're working with something that you've never worked with before, you don't quite know how that works. Maybe it's quite specialist. Then you might get a specific supervisor that specializes in that. So yeah, and having your own therapy can be really helpful as well, because we're also real people, right? So we're going through our own things. So as to not impact the client.
Now we're going to move on to my favourite bit, which is all about your journey. So let's say baby Amanda, when you were 9, 10, 11, what was your dream job?
Do you really want to know?
Yeah.
I decided I wanted to be a brain surgeon.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea where it came from. Probably something on the television. But
wow.
I decided, I suppose in some way I am a bit of a brain surgeon.
It's
your
related.
brain's neuroplastic, so we can move things around in there. But
that's unusual. I thought you were going to say like a gymnast or a singer or whatever, but a brain surgeon, that's quite specific.
It's very specific. However, from a very young age, I always knew I was here to help people to help and heal themselves.
Okay.
So literally from very young.
Wow.
But
we'll come back to
when you asked me that question, I just flashed back to a time with my dad saying, I want to be a brain surgeon. But
yeah, I changed. I wanted to be Steven Spielberg for a while, and then I wanted to be Tom Cruise in Top Gun, and loads of other things. But then take us through then the journey from when you went to uni. How did you make your mind up what you wanted to do?
Yeah, so I had this, like I just said, this inner core that knew I was here to help people to help and heal themselves. And then as life goes on, you get influenced by things. So I remember that I had this geography teacher, and he was lovely, and he was also the careers advisor, and he just made some little comment. He just said something about, so he was telling me, you should work in HR, you'd be perfect for that, and you get paid a lot of money. So I was like, oh, okay, that sounds good. So I did my work placement in HR.
Yeah.
Thought I was a bit bored, actually.
Yeah, okay.
Lots of photocopying and shredding things. I was like,
work experience can be like that, can't it?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So then I was like, I don't really know. And then I wasn't actually going to go. I was going to take a year out of before going to university. And then right at the last minute, I decided, no, I'm going to go. And I decided that I was going to be a barrister. So here we go. Here's something completely different.
Wow.
I don't know where that came from.
Left turn.
My dad was a sergeant major in the army. My brother had joined the army. My uncle was in the army. I had, traveled around as a child in the army. So I knew that if you joined the Army Legal Corps, they actually pay you to go to university.
Right.
And you only have to stay for I think 3 years, something like that. So I thought, right, I'll do that. And then there was an advert on the television. And it was an advert, a long time ago now, that used to have the yellow pages that you could look through the yellow pages and find phone numbers for things. And this actress came running down the stairs with these yellow pages, really excited, going, he's got an ology. And her son or grandson or whatever had just passed university. And I think there was something in that emotion that was there. I want that. I want someone to be so excited that I've got that. So then I changed to psychology.
Wow.
So
did you look at other ologies?
No, just psychology. It wasn't even a conscious thing that I'd thought of doing before then. It just dropped into my head, and isn't that funny how people end up doing what is, I can't think of a better way of describing it, but what's close to them. So in your sense, you did the army route of studying, is that right? So I didn't do it, but that's where I was going.
That's what you're going to do, because your dad was in the army, in the military. And then you chose to do psychology literally because of an advert you saw. But isn't that funny but it ended up being the right role for you? It was always
where I was meant to go.
But maybe you didn't know that exactly when you saw that advert. You didn't know that is the one. It's not like you knew for certain.
No.
But you just went with it.
I went with it. And then I made it work, you know. So I obviously went to university. I did my degree in psychology. And while I was there, I got work experience at Reuters. I worked in their news pictures department. So with all the journalists, it was all exciting. I had a TV on my desk. And it still didn't feel quite right. So then I moved over to corporate HR, and I did the leadership development, worked with the occupational psychologists. Still wasn't right. I always still connected and knew that I was here to help people individually, to help and heal themselves. And actually at Reuters, people would start coming to me, and it was just like school. At school, people would come to me with their problems, with their difficulties, and I'd be coaching and helping things.
And what was it then about HR psychology, if you like? What made you know that it wasn't quite right for you?
Yeah, I mean, I had a really good job and really good prospects. I was, going somewhere. And for me, it was just effectively what I'm there for is to help an organisation to have more profits, effectively, aren't I?
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And that's not what I was about. And I loved it when people were coming to me and they needed my support and my help with things. And I was going to the University of Michigan. We were running leadership development programs. And it was really while I was there, and a number of the senior managers, and I was actually helping them. I thought, this is how it should be. It feels right to me.
Okay.
So I left. I managed to get voluntary redundancy, which was unheard of, and retrained in counselling psychology, and went to do my master's, postmasters, got chartership.
Wow.
And just set up my own business.
You've now gone on to diversify what you do massively. So tell us a little bit about that. You mentioned about a CEO, an international speaker. You've written a book. That's epic. But how did you go from being a psychologist with your own business, with your own practice, to all those things that you just discussed?
Yeah, I mean, COVID helped actually, interestingly, because I then went online. I did have a few international clients that would fly in anyway, but, you know, the majority of my clients were local or within the UK. And then suddenly I was online, and then I had a client from LA and a client from Sydney and a client from Mexico. You know, they were coming in from all these different places. Yeah. And it kind of expanded and opened my world up a little bit. And there's a publisher called Hay House. They're really well known in the self-development and spirituality field, like the top one. And they have a writer's workshop once a year. And somehow I just went along and didn't know they did a competition, but they do a competition each year because it's really hard, especially now with social media, to get a publishing deal. You have to have hundreds of thousands of followers, etc. So I submitted a proposal, which was like a master's dissertation, you know, 30,000 words on a book. And I won for the Europe and the UK.
Oh my God.
So then I had to write this book.
Yeah.
And it was my
pressure.
whole approach. So I've actually founded a whole new area in psychology, which is called quantum self psychology. So I bring in, this isn't normal, by the way, just to let everybody know. A whole new field in psychology, quantum self psychology. So I bring in quantum science, epigenetics, psychoneuroimmunology, psychoneuroendocrinology, really big, long names. But all it really means is that we are more than just the thoughts, the feelings and the behaviors that you would see a normal psychologist for. We are energetic beings. When we look at each other at a subatomic level, we're made of energy. And that's not looked into by general psychologists.
Okay.
So we're bringing, that's quantum science. So we're bringing that in, that theory. So we're looking at the science behind that shows that we are all interconnected. Like they've shown research, like, so we're sitting this close, but the electromagnetic field from my heart will be going straight through you. So what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling is going to be impacting you.
Wow. And your book, if you were to give it like a 30-second elevator pitch, why should someone read that?
So shall I show my book?
Yes.
Here's my lovely book. Don't you just love that?
Yeah. I like the colour. It's sort of similar to in here.
It goes actually really well.
Yeah.
So it's The Psychic Psychologist, Heal Your Past, Find Peace in the Present, Transform Your Future. So basically, without going too woo-woo, since I was a young child, I have seen down timelines. So I know things that are going to happen before they happen, etc. So the book has a timeline through it, and I take the reader to before, during and after their birth.
Oh my gosh.
So before, there's all science behind all of this. So before could be ancestral trauma that's being passed down. It could be cellular memory that's passed down. There's all science about this. Intrauterine trauma, if you're pregnant whilst you're having the child, but also past life. So there's actually quite a lot of science behind past lives and the influence they can have in this life. So all of that before you're even born has an impact on the person you become.
That's amazing.
We look at that on all the levels of the self. So I talk about, you'll know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
So will anyone that's doing business studies.
Yeah.
I created the hierarchy of healing.
Okay.
On a similar, so you have to look at the physical, which also includes not just the physical body, but your physical environment, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and your relationship with yourself and other people. So that book looks at all those levels, goes to the past, goes to the present. So in the present, you are learning techniques to regulate your emotional system so that you can change, so that you can then go to your future, consciously construct the future life you want to live, so that that unconscious past that you've been born up with, or maybe the attachments or the problems when you were younger, doesn't get projected into the present and onto the future. Because if you don't release it, it's coming alongside you, and that's why we often repeat the same problems.
And didn't you say you were a tech company owner now as well? What's that?
Yeah, so I've created an app. It's called Therapy, but it ends with APPI.
Okay.
An AI therapy app.
Ah, yeah.
So it's not just like your chat GPT that people are connecting with and saying, I'm feeling really bad today.
Yeah.
It's bringing in my quantum self psychology. So you've got the whole timeline and all of that information gets fed into the AI. We've got a thing, like it's every level of the self. So you might want to eat something. So you can take a picture of your food that will go through and it will tell you how that will impact your mood. It will tell you how it impacts your neurochemistry and whether it's going to, influence you in a negative way. your sleep, it's got meditation, like
Oh my God.
literally everything.
Is it
in there.
live now? Is it launched?
I was hoping to launch it in January, but I've had a few bugs. I'm literally making the whole thing myself.
Oh my God.
So programming it, everything. have got a bit of help.
What is wrong with you? You're stop. No, it's so impressive. So therapy ending APPI.
Yeah.
All right, look out for it. The whole purpose, as you know, of these chats is to inspire young people to think a little bit more about where they could end up in their career and what route is the best route for them. But a big part of that is about knowing yourself in the first place. No better person to ask than you. What could you say to people out there, young people, about how do you know yourself? What does that mean even?
Yeah.
In a career sense?
And you know what? You change as well. As we've just said, you've changed what you wanted to do and be in your life. The same here. And it's getting to know who you are beneath all of that. So you're not influenced by all the noise around you, by the television program, by the teacher or the film that you're watching. And I think it's coming to the core of who you are, knowing what have I been drawn to? What brings me joy? Because you know what? When you're choosing a job, this is something, yes, you can change your job, but the chances are you're not going to, because once you've got a house and blah, 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 or once you start earning money from it, it's quite difficult to shift. You kind of get typecast a little bit, shall we say. By knowing what brings you joy, that can help influence where you take your career, because you're going to be doing this, for the majority of your life, for the majority of your day, your week, your month, your year. So bring it, because you can actually do a job that you enjoy. For me, I couldn't care less if I get paid, because I'm doing this. It lights me up. It's my purpose. And we don't all know our purpose when we're younger, obviously. And that purpose can grow out from something that you're doing. But if you know what you enjoy, the environments you like to be around, kind of what makes you feel flat. Often we know more what we don't like than what we do like. So it's making sure that you're kind of watering the roots of what lights you up, really, I think.
Now, you've given loads of good advice, but if I can squeeze one more out of you to finish up, which is, if you could go back and speak to 17-year-old Amanda, what advice would you give?
Whatever happens on that journey can take you to where you want to be. That don't underestimate what you will get from any perceived failure or difficulties. They actually help you grow into who you're going to be. So you're picking up information along the way. So my advice would be just to explore when you're younger. You can't make a mistake. And I think that can be really restrictive for people. They're fearful of making the wrong choice, going into the wrong career or having the wrong experience. And I would say there's no right or wrong. That actually, anything you choose to do now can take you, will help to take you and mold you into the person that you're going to become. Brilliant. Which is exciting, right?
Amanda, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
I am doing this to help young people find the job that will bring them happiness and fulfillment, but it will only help them if they hear it. So please help me get this in front of as many young folk as possible. Subscribe, share, and follow.